All right, we are going to get going here momentarily. Go ahead and stop here. So hi, my name is Tyler Sweat. I'm the Accessible Media Specialist here at the Iowa Library for the Blind. Today is our first sort of IMC webinar. So the IMC is the Instructional Materials Center webinar that we're going to be doing on the second Monday of the month. So before we kind of get going on the topic, we just kind of want to talk about what the IMC is and kind of what we do. So the Instructional Materials Center, we are under the Iowa Library for the Blind. And so from here, this is our website, which is idbimclibrary.blog. And you can access this from the Iowa Department for the Blind's website. So the main purpose of the IMC is to assist students with textbooks, as far as like getting them access to textbooks, turning them into electronic braille, or getting them print versions of their textbooks. And we do serve kindergarten through college as far as getting material. Also, we're in charge of a lot of braille programs. So a really great program that we offer is Braille Bits, which kind of breaks down just the braille code and different ways to learn it. And then throughout, we also do training for teachers and other things that we're going to be doing throughout the year. And we did, a few different trainings in the spring and the early summer for like 2-week trainings that we talked a lot about what we do. But so what we're trying to bring out of this sort of monthly webinar series is just to give people sort of information about what we do and how we can help your students, as well as just, extra training and other things to help you out. So today we're just talking about how to get started with a screen reader. And so the biggest thing to understand is that we're not going to be doing like super deep technical dives into how to use screen readers with your students. A lot of today is going to be like where to get started. So it's going to be what screen readers are, how do we get them, and sort of some basic resources to get students going on using a screen reader, which would then allow them to, sort of build on that knowledge, and then, and then further down the road, learn how to use a screen reader to its full potential. There's a lot of things that screen readers can do. And so I think that it gets overwhelming really quick when someone starts with, this new technology and they have no idea what they're doing with it. And all of the things that go with it and information that you have. So I'm going to try to break it down as easily as possible to just sort of make it make sense for everybody. So if you do have any questions during it, feel free to just type that into the Q&A or the chat, and I will go ahead and I will get to that. Also, I will be posting this on YouTube after. And so for the attendees, I'll be sending you an email afterwards with a lot of the links that I talk about today. As well as on YouTube, I'll post all the links to the resources that we use on there, which I'll show off our YouTube channel in a little bit. So, all right. So when we talk about starting with screen readers, my opinion is that the earlier you can start is always better. I think that it gives access to technology that your low vision or blind student may not have access to. And it's a barrier. If you don't understand how to use a screen reader, then that limits your access to be using even something like an iPad or, a computer that every other student may have access to in that class. So I think that's a huge barrier that can exist if the student is not introduced early to screen reading technology. It also gives them a lot of freedom. It's going to give them, access to everything, which then allows their world to kind of open up when it comes to those things. I also think the earlier you start, that learning curve isn't as sharp. If you have, per se, like an 8th grader who's never used a screen reader and now all of a sudden is to the point where they need it, catching them up with their peers or trying to get them back on track of using a computer and using a screen reader is going to take a lot more of that learning curve versus starting, in those younger elementary ages where you can kind of work them into it as far as the skills that they need to be successful with screen readers. Because there is a lot that can go on with them. And I think that it's easy to get frustrated if it's something that if they get kind of slammed on and with all of the new things that they have to learn. And also, the skills build on top of each other, where you might start with an iPad or an iPhone where you're just learning basic gestures. And then you can easily transfer that information over to a computer when you start using something like JAWS or NVDA, which are a couple of the screen readers that we'll be going over today. So the first thing I want to show is we're going to go to this link. This is from WebAIM, and it's Web Accessibility in Mind. And they do a screen reader user survey, and they do this every year. You can see on the right-hand side there, they've done, this will be the 8th one. So this is, and they do them in the August to September. So this one was done in August to September of last year. And so this is just general questions about what people are using screen readers, what type of screen readers they're using, and just kind of where they get their information from while using it. What I really like about this survey is that it really does a great job of just giving you data. So if you're trying to prove to like an administrator or a school district, like, hey, my student needs this technology, this is kind of the data that could help back up why that they should spend money on getting a screen reader or getting a certain product that you would need. So it's a pretty broad range. As we scroll down here, within that, the disability types, blindness or low vision are obviously the top two. But when we talk about screen readers, there are other uses for screen readers, and a lot of other people can get benefits out of using assistive technology like it. So that's the other thing to realize, that a lot of this stuff is not just for blindness or low vision. And even some of the resources I'm going to be going over today could apply to a larger group of people than just blind or low vision. So internet proficiency, this really does a really good deep dive. So most of the time people are using screen readers. This is when I talk about, multiple uses. 71% exclusively audio, but then you have people that are, using it in conjunction with visual, and then people that use it primarily Braille would be their smallest switch, where they're using a refreshable Braille device with their computer or iPad. So the screen reader devices, now desktop computer, laptop, mobile device, these numbers have changed over the years. If you look at, like, there's some of the other studies, mobile devices definitely picked up exponentially, which makes sense just because how that technology has gotten better. This was the one when you look at outside of school age, when you look at just level of employment, that 46.8% of people that are using screen readers are employed full-time. So it just shows the need for having this sort of skill does apply later in life, and then you also have, part-time and students. So that's a huge chunk of this, of people that are using screen readers. So the main screen readers that we're talking about today are these top three right here. So NVDA, JAWS, and VoiceOver. We will talk a little bit about Zoom text and some other things, but these are the top three, and they have been for the last few years. So if you look at this chart, kind of shows the popularity of each during the survey. And so when they first started it, it was like only JAWS, and NVDA was just like pretty much just out, like it hadn't come out too much longer. And VoiceOver is pretty similar. Now on this chart especially, they're talking about use of on a computer. So that's why if you look at like why VoiceOver stayed the same, that's the Mac version of a screen reader. And so when we talk about the Mac version, on a computer, those have always been pretty similar, just because I think it's the price point of those computers, and VoiceOver has been pretty good for a long time. And so that's why it's pretty much consistently stayed here. But when you look at mobile phones, VoiceOver definitely takes the cake on that one. So JAWS is we'll kind of compare it and the difference of these, but you notice that this is the first year the NVDA has overtaken JAWS as far as people that are using it as their primary screen reader. So I'll link this later for you guys to check out, but I think it's just a really good sort of, it's just a lot of data that they've gained to kind of show off like screen readers and how they're being used. I want to show, there was one other. Yeah, so here's the mobile ones. So if you look at mobile platforms, Apple's almost 70%, while Android is 27.5%. So that is a fairly broad difference there. So when we talk about mobile, yeah, talking about VoiceOver, talking about TalkBack for Android. And so when we talk about VoiceOver, Apple, like all Apple created apps, so that means that Apple made them, they are accessible using VoiceOver. And so that's a really nice feature to have, knowing that if you get an app that is from Apple, it's going to be accessible. It has a fairly stable operating system, means it doesn't have any glitch. It's not as glitchy as some other things can be sometimes, or something gets changed and then nothing works. So it works really well. And there are a lot of gestures to learn with it. So any iPad, iPhone already has it built in. You just have to turn it on within the accessibility, or if you tell Siri to turn on VoiceOver. But once it's on, it's a lot of like moving your finger back and forth, or moving it around the screen to kind of figure out where you're at. And then it's different taps. So like one finger double tap selects something, but even such things like 3 fingers swiping up. And those are the other features that you can use within there. So that's where it's just, there's a lot of gestures to go with it. Now TalkBack is, you can customize it a lot more. So you can kind of change up what the features are and what it kind of looks like, and can kind of mold it to your student. It has been updated more frequently, so therefore they're trying to keep up with VoiceOver. So it is getting there. A while, like 4 or 5 years ago, it wasn't anywhere close to what VoiceOver is even then. So yeah. When we talk about computers, we still got the VoiceOver. That's still an option on Macs. And then Chromevox, this is like, so Chromebooks, which I know are really common in schools now. Chromevox is standard. There's a lot of great training videos that come with that on YouTube that you can find that kind of talk about how to use it correctly. Google does a good job with a lot of those accessibility things, but Chromevox is standard on those, and it's already on there. Now, when we talk about the two big screen readers, you have NVDA and JAWS. So NVDA is a open source screen reader, which makes it free, which is a really nice price point, especially trying to just learn a screen reader. When you look at JAWS, $90 a year or $900 for a lifetime, that is a big price point, especially when it's, something where somebody's learning a skill or someone doesn't have access to $90 a year. That's why I think it's really important to try out both. A lot of times throughout the year, JAWS will do, like the past couple months, they've been doing a free trial, which you can kind of check out to see if it works for you. But NVDA is always free. And the other nice thing about it, you can put it on a USB drive. So if, let's say, a student goes to a library, goes to school, goes to the computer lab, and they have a USB, they can just stick it into that computer, and now they have NVDA on that computer, which is, I think, a really nice feature that you can do with that data. And there are still some differences as far as depending on the website, where sometimes NVDA can pick it up, but JAWS won't. And even vice versa, sometimes JAWS will pick it up. Now, when we talk about JAWS a little bit more, it is very memory intensive. So the program's built a little differently. So sometimes it does slow down older computers. And it seems to be a little more of a learning curve with some of the things that you can do with JAWS. They're both really good at what they do. But those are kind of just the pros and cons. And you can find people that only use NVDA, and you can find people that swear by JAWS. So, I mean, it's not saying that one's better than the other. It's a lot of personal preference when it comes to screen readers, especially when you get into settings and like how to set them up and sort of the features that go along with it, which we're not diving into a whole lot here. But it is important to realize that a lot of this is personal preference. And so that's why I think getting started with, just one and kind of building the skills of a screen reader, and then kind of branching out to try other screen readers with different features just to see what is good. So yeah. Now the skills that I think are really important when we talk about screen readers are listening, problem solving, and keyboarding skills. So when we talk about listening, with a student especially, they're always having to listen to the computer to figure out where they're at on a page, how they got to that page, sort of all the information that the computer is giving them, which then allows them to problem solve, right? So a big part of using a screen reader is problem solving, because it's not always going to be, not every website's going to have headings and you're going to be able to navigate easily around to each, spot on it. You're not going to be able to jump from here to here just successfully, because the website might be broken, or you might have gotten confused and got into a different sidebar that you weren't aware of. And so it's having those problem solving skills of figuring out where I need to be on this page and how to get the information off of it that I need it. And same with editing, when you're using a screen reader to edit Word documents and other things, that sometimes you can get a little bit lost when you're cutting and editing and moving things around. So that's why it's really important to just kind of, by learning screen readers, it just allows you to kind of build on those problem solving skills. And then keyboarding skills, obviously it's really hard to use a screen reader if you don't have keyboarding skills. So that's why that comes hand in hand. And I'm going to be going over a lot of keyboarding resources. That's probably one of the main ones when we talk about like sort of additional things that I'm going to show you guys is that making sure that those keyboarding skills are what is really important to kind of help develop that screen reader usage as much as possible. So I'm going to kind of dive into some of the other things. I'm going to show you guys a bunch of resources. So when you look at mobile devices, I was going to talk about using gestures. A nice thing, you can also Bluetooth keyboards. So that's another nice thing that you can use it that way. And also Braille screen inputs. So that's like a refreshable Braille device. So either the school might provide it. You know, we're starting a pilot program here where we're giving out refreshable Braille devices to our Braille patrons on the library side, which can Bluetooth to an iPhone or a Bluetooth device. So that's why it's nice to have those options as well and just knowing how to use a screen reader. So I'm going to stop the share and then reshare it. So we're going to go back over here. So the big one that I really like is called Accessibite. And this one, they do a free trial, and I recommend you try it out because it is pretty awesome. So it comes with a lot of different things. The Typeo is their typing program. And so on here, what this does a really good job, it does a good job of just making engaging and fun. So when we look at, I'm trying to see if they had a screenshot. Yeah, so a lot of it is, it's built like a normal keyboard and this little monster, and you like feed him throughout the things. And there's just a lot of different skills that go along with it. And that, I think it's just the program's built in a really nice and manageable way for younger students. It also has other accessible things like note taking and calculator, and then like the other, and this all comes standard when you get when you like sign up for it. And so then quick cards. So quick cards is basically an accessible version of flashcards, and so that's kind of what those look like. But the other favorite part when it comes from a screen reading skill is the Accessibite Arcade. So I'm going to click that. So these are all fully accessible games. And I think they do just a really good job of teaching screen reader skills in a different way. So some of it is timing. Some of it is just like memory and having to find different things on there. And so like they even have like Hangman, or they call it Hangry Man, which you can customize a lot of this stuff too and change up the words. So if you were, the student had a vocab list, you could add a lot of those words into these games, which I think is a really cool way to kind of adjust with it. And then the Wizard's Tower, now that one is more of just like learning the keys and kind of customizing, but it's really basic ways to teach students screen reading, and keyboarding skills just in a different, fun way. So that's one that I really like. Again, that's Accessibite, and they do free trials. So from a school standpoint, a teacher could have multiple students on a teacher dashboard. You can kind of manage where your students are at, like with the typing program and other things, just sort of, and that's just kind of a nice feature for if you buy if your school buys like the bigger package, you can kind of keep track of everybody and where they're at and how they're doing. So that is an extra feature of that. Now we're talking about a little bit older kids into like adults. That's where we're talking like Talking Typer. So Talking Typer is a pretty standalone keyboarding skill. So it does speak, so you don't even have to have a screen reader on. With some keyboarding technology, you do have to have so this Accessibite you don't, and this one you don't either, where it's built into the program, which is nice because then like a teacher could load it up for the student. The student doesn't have to navigate the computer to get there and have extra talking that they don't understand why. So that's why programs like that are really good. A talking typing teacher or Talking Typer is a really good one that does that. And that's sold by APH. You can find it a couple of other places as well. Now, if you want like a free basic keyboarding program that's accessible with a screen reader, so this one works with NVDA and JAWS. It's called Keystroke. And so this is like a really like basic program, but it is free. And so that's the nice part. But it is like a lot of just like think of like old school typing programs where it's like you hit the F key a bunch and then you hit the J key a bunch and then you hit the F and J key a bunch, like just a lot of repetitive stuff. So that is kind of what this program is built as, but I think it just does a really good job of just like getting the basic stuff, and it's free. So that's why it's just kind of a nice resource to have. I'm going to link these two a little bit, you know, like later. So this is when we talk about voiceover. This is a real, what I like about this PDF is that it shows the gesture as well as the keyboard. So for example, the gesture to activate an item would be double tap. And then on a keyboard, it'd be the voiceover button and spacebar. So whenever you see like voiceover button or NVDA button, just be aware that like that means like on NVDA, it's the caps lock key. So if you push the caps lock key plus spacebar, that would be an example of activating. But there is and you can customize that key on most screen readers. And then this is the same thing, just spelled out a little differently. Before I move on to the next thing, we're just talking a little bit about like tactiles. Is there any questions? I'm not seeing anything in the chat, but I just want to make sure. So this is your chance. I know I might be flying too fast. That's why I want to make sure that I didn't lose anybody yet. Okay, so one of, I think when you're trying to teach students with screen readers, I think a really good way, especially when we're talking about computers, is using tactiles. So this is a really great article that talks about tactiles and kind of shows you different ways that you can use it. So, you know, it's these Velcro mats with like little felt pieces to stick to it. So this is showing editing with using a screen reader. So it's showing, you know, the line is the different, you know, where you're at in the word. So if you're trying to edit it and you're trying to change the letter, you're trying to cap, you know, this shows like this is where you're at when you move to the next thing. So that's what I think it really puts it in perspective for kids. I'm not going to read this whole thing. I just want to show you guys another example. So if you look at this one, this would be like the main computer screen where you have the taskbar at the bottom with the start menu and you have, you know, the desktop icons and then your focus tool. So your focus tool is what you're, you know, what you're jumping around with the screen reader. So I think it's really good to kind of give hands-on approach to this, especially for younger students, where you could be like, you could put the, you know, computer focus tool on this icon and be like, okay, so if this is where the screen reader is and I'm trying to get down to this bottom one, you know, how would I do that? And so then you jump the focus tool down to this one and it reads it. Jump it down to this one, it reads it. Jump it down to this one. Okay, that's the one I want. So I think it's a really just an interesting way to kind of get kids involved in learning how to use the screen reader. So I think it's a pretty easy way, you know. Now I think I'm pretty sure Perkins Learning sells this Velcro or this felt pad for like, I think it's way more. I can't remember. I think it's like 150. It might be less than that, but you can, you know, this is something you can easily make on your own if you need to, just to kind of help with tactiles. Another one that they do, I think, is a really good one is for radio buttons. So if they're filling out like a survey or think of it like a quiz, where you show the student, you know, these are your 4 options and the out and this green circle. So the one, the O, the donut is going to be where you're the highlighter. So this is what you've selected. So, you know, it reads that one, you go down, it reads that one. So I think it's like spelling those types of things out. I think it's just a great way to kind of show kids, just kind of make sense of it from, you know, a tactile perspective so that they can then feel it and then move on from there. So this is just another easy example of showing like a grid. So think like Excel, where then you have it all divvied up. And so then it's them trying to move around to where they need to go. Now they're playing bingo with this, but you could use this for a bunch of different reasons, a bunch of different uses of just showing kids how to get around tables. Because, you know, that is, I think, you know, when a lot of kids learn screen readers and they kind of navigate a little bit, I think the first table they run into, it becomes a little bit more of a learning curve when they do that, just because you can kind of move around much differently than you were just basic navigating through a website. So that's why I think that is an important factor that goes along with it. So yeah, so that's just a good one for that. I'll go ahead and stop there. So I think like when it comes with screen readers, a lot of it is just getting, you know, just getting the technology in the student's hand. And I think that what we're seeing now is, you know, a lot of students are getting Chromebooks, they're getting iPads. And so I think that having the knowledge of just where to start, I think is the most important. It just gives students sort of the necessary tools they need to kind of to check it out. trying to see if there's any more questions right now. I'm going to take it. I'm kind of wrapping up. I've been blabbing the whole time. I don't see any questions. And so, you know, as these webinars continue to go on, you know, month by month, our goal with them is to sort of try to hit different audiences, such as like teachers of the visually impaired, or just teachers in general, and try to give them the skills they need to kind of help their students. You know, I think one of the things we learned from our trainings that we did in the spring and summer is that there's a need for just a lot of information to kind of get you know, the world a little more accessible, and just try to help with some of these things. Because I think once students start using the technology, I think at the beginning there's that initial barrier, and once they start using it, it really is beneficial to everybody, including the teacher, just kind of giving them a different approach, and just helping them learn, you know, how to sort of with all those technologies, so they can, you know, do anything that they need to do in class just to keep up. And right now, with a lot of school districts being online, I think that sometimes accessibility is being overlooked. And so I think that having access to that technology and kind of having those skills is really important. So before we sign off here, there's one more thing I'm gonna show you guys, and it's just our YouTube channel. So I'm gonna get that up here, and then I can kind of share. So we have been doing, you know, posting a lot more onto our YouTube channel, just getting resources up there. So I just want to kind of show it off here quick. So some of the things, you know, some of it is library side, where we're, you know, kind of doing some things with BARD, which is Braille audio reading download. But some of it is just some of our youth programming that we've been doing. So like our Makerspace Monday, which is what's happening at 6:30 tonight. Well, it'll be that one up here. And then our STEM and Story Saturday, which will be happening this Saturday. Just some other programming, as well as just kind of what the Department for the Blind is about, and just kind of what other resources that we have available. So with that, I don't know if there's any other questions. Well, thanks for coming. And yeah, feel free to reach out with any questions after the webinar. And I'll be sure to send you guys the links with everything that we kind of talked about today. So thanks.